To kick us off this morning, I'm going to ask the council member of the 14th District and author of Prop 68, Councilmember Kevin de León.
Thank you so very much. Good morning. Buenos dias. I'm honored to be here with each and every one of you, especially with really good friends that are to the right and left of me, who directly and indirectly played a huge role in making this come to fruition. This morning, we're here to announce $17 million. $17 million. A $17 million investment for our parks for the city of Los Angeles, specifically here in the great east side of LA. For communities that, much like my own, as I grew up as a child, lacked green space and open space. This is especially important to me because it was just a few years back when I was serving as your leader of your California State Senate that I wrote Senate Bill 5. And Senate Bill 5 became Proposition 68, which was before all of the voters in California in 2018. The Parks and Water Bond Act, again, became known as Prop 68. We recognize how parks in our neighborhoods were run down, they were overcrowded, and quite frankly, they simply didn't exist like in many other neighborhoods throughout the city of LA. Very simply, there were simply not enough parks for green grass to grow underneath the feet of our children. Parks that were, again, run down because of lack of maintenance. We saw how communities like in Ball Heights and El Sereno, as well as Lincoln Heights and Highland Park, were surrounded by pollution. 9 major freeways that crisscross our district like a serpent that chokes the air, the oxygen out of young boys, out of young girls' lungs, whether it's the 2, the 5, the 10, whether it's the 60, whether it's the 101, the 110, the 134, the 210, or the 710 freeways. One thing we do know we have in abundance are major freeways that crisscross and cut through our neighborhoods. What we don't have in abundance is green grass, open space, and trees for shade. What our children deserve. If they weren't polluted by factories pumping out harmful toxins, then they were surrounded by freeways, again, that poison our air. What we envisioned was more parks, more trees, more environmental benefits for our communities that needed the most. And that's the origin story of Senate Bill 5 and Prop 68, which is patterned after the first bill that I ever introduced in my entire life as elected official, which is AB 31. The genesis of the money here today starts with AB 31 when I was a freshman as assembly member representing each and every one of you. Now, the voters overwhelmingly approved a $4 billion investment in Prop 68 for state and local parks, of which $700 million is dedicated for parks statewide and are being funded in multiple rounds. Now, this is one of the tranches, one of the rounds right now that we're talking about specifically for the $17 million. Let me be very clear. This is not by happenstance, by pure luck. The measure that I wrote is intentional and it's purposeful. It is specifically targeting communities that lack parks and open space. Because historically, we have seen measures that have passed by the voters statewide. And we saw that those who have the financial wherewithal can secure the dollars very quickly. Those communities who need it the most were the communities who actually got the least. Quite ironic. So the rich got richer always. And those who needed it the most got the very least. That's why we changed the formula, and it wasn't easy. In fact, we had a lot of pushback, even among our own colleagues who were used to a formula where we always had an automatic. You were there with, you were there with, not there at the time, but I know, not our colleagues. These colleagues will stand still in the trenches to make sure we get that money there. And I tell you one thing: if they were with me, Wendy and Maria Elena with me at that time, it would have been even much easier because it would have been that sharp tip of the spear making sure we get that money. But I know that Miguel and Jimmy Gomez, especially Jimmy, when Jimmy was the assembly member at the time, I on the other side of the aisle or the other side of the Capitol, we worked hard and we worked as a tandem, as a team to make sure we made this come to fruition. Now listen, the fundamental goal of Senate Bill 5 is straightforward. Rehabilitate parks and communities that don't have resources like Hazard Park, where we're at today. Create new parks where park space is a deficit like new 6th Street Park. Hazard Park, where we're standing today, will have $8.27 million, which will totally transform this facility. And I want to put this in perspective. That means a new soccer field. That means outdoor restrooms, a dog park, a splash pad, fitness equipment, public art honoring the leaders of East LA, walkouts like Sal Castro, Alec Mann, and Ray Wante. Also, too, and I'm sure that our Assemblywoman Wendy Carrillo will speak about in a few moments, this is an iconic figure who also influenced Wendy to go on to higher education as well. But she'll tell her story in a few moments. An outdoor performance plaza, a completely redesigned parking lot, 2 renovated baseball fields, ADA access upgrades, and 4 brand new playgrounds for our children right here in Ramona Gardens. The scope of work was developed after a series of many community meetings where local residents came together and provided the feedback to the Department of Recs and Parks about what they wanted to see in their own neighborhoods. And that came in the form of a goal that's dedicated to public art, recognizing the East LA walkouts of Wilson as well as Lincoln High School, the Mules as well as the Tigers, back in 1968. A symbol of fighting for Latino students, the very same fight that we have today to make sure that we are heard and that we're not made to feel invisible in a city of LA where we are 50% of the population. To the community here, this project wasn't just a park renovation, but the opportunity to shed light on moments that are often forgotten by the arc of history. But in those same arcs that have allowed us to stand in front of each and every one of you at this podium today, that gives us an opportunity to tell our story. The second park we are announcing as well is funding for 6th Street Park, a new 12-acre park that will be located on both sides of the new 6th Street Bridge, scheduled for completion this upcoming summer. Now, having represented Boyle Heights for many years in the state legislature, now in the city council, I'm very familiar with the 6th Street Bridge and the surrounding community. Now, I remember when the city asked for assistance dealing with Caltrans, once again, to preserve critical design elements of this project, we came in and we saved the stairs and bicycle pedestrian ramps to a total of how much, Miguel? $35 million. $35 million on the first tranche. And when the city came to the state seeking, again, more funds to connect the bridge and the future park of the community of Pico Gardens, I secured $5 million in streetscape improvements to make it safer for children and for facilities or families to build a brand new open space park. Finally, let me say this. We've secured $8.5 million to bring all of these elements together that fulfills the vision I had for this project. And like Hazard, it has a lengthy list of accomplishments. The $8.5 million for the brand new 6th Street Bridge will include 2 new dog parks for Boyle Heights and for the Arts District, a new skate park, a building for restrooms, a playground, a splash pad, an urban forest, a flexible sports court for basketball as well as other events, and 2 flexible playing fields for both soccer as well as a course for public art features. This is what we're doing here in the city of LA, but especially on the east side. Now, I'm proud to say of the 7 applications submitted by the city of Los Angeles that were funded by the state of California due from SB 5, the 7, 4 of them. 4 of them are right here in our backyard on the east side. 4 out of 7. And CD14 in the districts that Jimmy Gomez, Maria Elena Durazo, Wendy Carrillo, Miguel Santiago, all of us share together and work so hard in a collaborative fashion together. That also includes the 2 parks we are discussing today, but plus a $5.2 million park on Matthews Street in Boyle Heights, where we broke ground just last September, an expansion of the El Sereno Arroyo playground adjacent to the Caltrans owned properties on the 710 corridor. From the very beginning, SB 5 has been about bringing overdue improvements and resources to communities that need it the most. And as Senate President, I've worked hard to deliver those benefits. And as council member, I'm directly now implementing them, and with the strong support and help of our friends and allies like Wendy and Marilena, as well as Miguel in our state legislature, and Jimmy Gomez from Washington, D.C., helping us in Washington as well. Now, whether you live in Boyle Heights or Brentwood, whether you live in Highland Park or Hancock Park, whether you live in Watts or Woodland Hills, everyone deserves clean, safe, well-maintained parks to enjoy. Everyone deserves that. Regardless of what language you speak, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of your legal status. We all deserve access to Mother Nature. We don't all have the financial wherewithal to go to REI and buy a Thule cargo box and get on your Audi or your Volvo and go 3, 4, 5 hours to enjoy pristine open space. Why can't we have it here in the city of LA too? It costs more money, no doubt about it, because it's much more dense. We have to remediate harmful toxins that have wasted many of our open spaces in the city of LA, but it's worth the cost because we're making investments in our children who we are saying today, you deserve it. You deserve good things. And that's why we're here today. We're delivering on that promise, that commitment to the communities that we serve every single day. I want to thank each and every one of you for the opportunity to share a few words. Now let me bring up our congressional leader in our own nation's capital, our very own Congressman Jimmy Gomez.
Kevin, thank you so much for the introduction. I want to just thank all my colleagues here, and although we don't serve in the same level of government or the same chamber, they are my colleagues because we work as a team. Everybody from the local level to the state level to the federal level. We're always looking out to how do we provide most to the people that need the most. And that's kind of what has led us in all our careers. In the California legislature, I was proud to work with Kevin to take some of his ideas and to expand on them. The idea of equity, making sure that more resources when it comes to building parks, combating climate change, housing, all of it goes to the people that are most in need. And Prop 68 is a perfect example of that. How do you target the resources so you don't see a green divide or a digital divide or a housing divide get bigger and bigger and bigger? And we actually took that idea to Congress for the first time. And now I'm a co-chair of the Racial and Economic Equity Working Group for the Ways and Means Committee. This is the tax committee that brought to you the child tax credit. The idea is how do you target resources so you can actually change people's lives? How do you lift people out of poverty? And that's what it's about. This park, I believe, is a testament to that idea. My family, I grew up not here, but it was a very similar community. We didn't have cable television. We had an old black and white that you can barely see, and you had to turn with some pinzas because the knob would break off. We didn't go on family vacations. We drove around in the back of the pickup truck. We didn't go to movies. Movies were a luxury that only the rich could afford. But you know what we did? We went to our neighborhood park almost every single weekend or every chance that we got. Even if our parents didn't want us to go, we would show up anyways. And that's what these parks are about. It's about access to the outdoors, access to play, access to just get out of the house when you don't have air conditioning and it's too hot. That's what these parks mean to the neighborhoods around us. But it's also, we're doing great work, I think, at the state level, at the local level. Here at the federal level, we passed the infrastructure package. But it's also based on this idea of how do we deliver the most to the people that have the most needs. That's essentially it. The 6th Street Viaduct, it's a beautiful bridge. I'm glad it has I would say it's more than 50% federally funded, but guess what? The parks aren't. The things that could bring the community together aren't. And I would say, what's the use of a brand new bridge if you can't afford to put the gas in your car to drive over it or even to walk over that bridge? So having the parks and bringing people, making a destination, not just a way to get from point A to point B, is really the key. So I want to say thank you to Councilmember de León for his leadership on this issue over the years, as well as Senator Maria Elena Durazo, Member Wendy Carrillo, and Assemblyman Miguel Santiago for all their help. And to the city staff, thank you for doing everything that you've done to make these ideas and vision a reality. Thank you. And
¿Dónde está el Jimmy? En el parque. Yeah. El Jimmy. It's my honor to introduce a very good friend, a champion, a fighter, a leader, a labor leader, now our own state senator who fights for us every day. She's also the chair of the California Latino Legislative Caucus that fights for all of us every single day in the trenches. Let's give it up and let's bring up our very own state senator, Maria Elena Durazo.
Thank you, Councilman. It's really great and exciting to be here with this team. Think about it. It takes a team at all levels of government. And those who were before us, in the state legislature, now, at different levels of government, federal to local. But it takes all of this over several years to deal with the decades that our communities were ignored. Our communities were left out. Our communities didn't get anywhere near what was due to us. And now we're beginning to see the fruits of years of struggle, years of campaign, years of community leaders. And I want to thank the community leaders who were here, who participated and helped to make that push so that we could get the dollars today. For us, what does it mean? Maybe for me, a dog park or a skate park might not mean that much. But if you're one of the renters in this district, in an overcrowded district that have no space and have no way to really get healthy, try to stay healthy, this park and this money means a whole lot. It means life and death, quality of life. I'm excited because altogether, and the councilman went through the details of this, but altogether in Senate District 24, it's over $23 million in park funding. So thank you to those who fought for this funding that is now coming. That means the money that the councilman said for Hazard Park, over $8 million, the 6th Street Viaduct, and finally Salazar Park. So, over almost $7 million. So altogether, $23 million will be coming to our community. That, again, remember, that's from fighting for it. We had to fight for it. And we're not done. We're going to keep fighting for more because we've got to catch up. We got to catch up. And our communities need more. It's wrong for a community that is the largest community in the city and the county of Los Angeles to be last when it comes to resources. That is wrong. So we're going to keep on fighting to make sure that there's true equity on all these issues, especially the parks. And I look forward to when these parks are done to be able to visit and see all these things, fitness equipment and the lighting and the baseball fields and the rec centers. Again, gracias a todos. Gracias por la lucha y seguimos adelante. Sí se puede.
Thank you very much to our very own state senator for a rousing, speech, that motivation and inspiration, and giving context to the history, that there's no automatic formula that says we just draw down those dollars and it comes easily, that we have to fight for those dollars legislatively, change the formulas that also benefit our communities as well. Now, next we have a homegirl, a local homegirl from Boyle Heights, from Roosevelt High School. She's a Rough Rider, and she fights for all of us every day in our own state capital. Let's give it up for our own Wendy Carrillo. Tell me one Wendy Carrillo. La Wendy.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's so great to be with you all here today. I want to take a moment to just ground us as to where we are. I'm so grateful to be with you all here today. I'm so glad that Senator Durazo brought up both Salazar Park and East LA as we commemorate today here in Hazard Park. So the communities of East Los Angeles and Boyle Heights share a history. We have $8.2 million here for Hazard Park, $6.9 million for Salazar Park in East Los Angeles. And there is someone very special here with us today, Mr. Rosalio Munoz, who was a student at UCLA during the 1968 student walkouts and the Chicano moratorium. This park, Hazard Park, and Salazar Park, named after Ruben Salazar years later, were places in which our community, Chicano students, got together to ensure that there was equity in our schools, that our community was represented. Schools from all across this area, Roosevelt, Garfield, Lincoln, Franklin, Wilson, came here to this park. They went to Salazar Park to protest the Vietnam War, to protest the inequities in our schools, to ensure that the Latino Chicano community on the east side was represented. These parks are hallowed grounds. These parks are significant. These parks have made a difference for generations in our community, and it is people like Rosalio, who was just a student back then at UCLA. Thank you. Thank you, Rosalio, for your leadership, and so many like you. I had the great honor of meeting Sal Castro in late 1999, early 2000, when I was just a student at East LA College and I didn't know what I was doing with my life. And he said, Mija, you are the oldest of 5 daughters right here from Boyle Heights, and it is up to you to make a difference in your family and in your community. And he gave me the energy and really what I needed to figure out what I was going to do next as a 19-year-old girl from this side of the town. Went to Cal State LA right after. That's where I also met Rosalio, who had a huge display on the Chicano moratorium, the Chicano walkouts here in this community, and the importance of these parks. They're more than just parks. They're more than just grass. They're more than just these places in our community. They unite us. They bring us together. My uncle and my dad play handball here at this park. And it's just so great to see this community thrive. And I want to share that with you because as somebody that grew up in this neighborhood and has seen like the inequities across our city, Ramona Gardens, which is a housing project, is just down the street from here, often forgotten. This is the only green space that they also have. And so for us to be here, to see the city, the county, and the federal opportunities that we have to ensure that our community thrives and prospers is just so amazing and really quite humbling to also be in this space. So again, thank you, Councilmember, for all of your hard work, and to my colleagues in the Assembly and the Senate, and to Congressman Jimmy Gomez, who had this position right before I ran for this office. Thank you for all of your support and your work to ensure that our community has access to green spaces, to healthy parks, and to healthy communities that can ultimately, at the end of the day, live in dignity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Wendy, for the very poignant arc of history and what it means. And like you said, hallowed grounds that go beyond just parks and open space, and tying it to the amazing history that we've had here since the Chicano walkouts and Rosalillo. I didn't know you were a teenager. I thought you were a baby back then, you know. Yeah, te estoy cortando los años, eh. Yeah. Yeah, that's there you go. There you go. Next, we have our assembly member who represents us tirelessly up in our own state capital. He represents going across, Boyle Heights, and he's a resident of Boyle Heights. He fights for us every single day. Let's get up and let's bring up our very own assembly member, Miguel Santiago. Miguel Santiago.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. de León, for bringing us here today and for fighting really hard at the state's capital to get this done. The concept was very simple at that time. The concept was our kids deserve what other kids have. When you take a look at what we had in the area, and you take a look at decades of neglect, and you take a look at we're crisscrossed around freeways, and you take a look at the pollution. These communities have been devastated for decades, and the concept behind what we were trying to do at the time was to make sure that we had the same things that other neighborhoods had. Our kids shouldn't have to go to Pasadena, shouldn't have to go to the west side, shouldn't have to go to other small cities just to play in a park. And this hits home and very personal, because when you take a look at even our ASO here in Boyle Heights right across the street, that covers some of this area for young kids playing soccer, they don't have a place to play soccer. And in fact, my kid plays soccer, both of them do. And we're consistently trying to find a place for them just to play. And typically it's at Mendez High School or another high school that'll loan it to us, whether it's Roosevelt or a park that we're trying to make some makeshift place for kids to play. And this has a huge impact on them. Our neighborhoods don't have the soccer fields, don't have the parks, don't have the places. And you can imagine if you're a working family and you're trying to get recreation and you're trying to invest in tomorrow's future, which is our children, and there's nowhere to go. It's a huge inequity. It's a huge inequity. And the concept behind the bill was very simple. To have our kids have the same thing that other kids have. Just because they were born in a certain zip code, just because their parents weren't doctors, attorneys, astronauts, or whatever it was, or just because they weren't born in other places of Los Angeles, we wanted our kids to have something here and to have access to those same parks and recreation facilities that other kids had. And that's been the whole fight and the whole struggle around this bill and other bills that folks have been pushing for. And today we sit here and we celebrate, because when we told people at that time that it would have an impact in our neighborhoods, there was a lot of naysayers. Not amongst here, but I'm saying it in the legislature, because we wanted to change formulas that when we get more, that meant a whole heck of a lot of the other people in Sacramento, they get less. And those fights weren't easy, to try to get 2/3 vote for other people to get less, because that's the way they saw it. But our argument was very clear. Our argument was that our kids deserve the very same things that other kids in other neighborhoods deserve, and that we weren't going to stand, that we weren't going to stand, and we weren't going to allow for environmental racism to exist in a bill just because other places thought that other things should get funded, except for the neighborhoods where people of color live, and particularly Latinos live. And that's why it's a huge win. Not just accessing the dollars, but the ability to get that through the legislature so that we can begin to fight and eradicate some of the injustices that we've seen in our neighborhoods. Not just because it's a park, but because our kids deserve the very same thing. And it's the same fight that we had when we fought for excise dollars. For 35 years, it wasn't funded, and we were always left behind. It was the same fight when cap and trade came down, which is people wanted to fight different sources of pollution, but not the ones in our neighborhood because they look different. And today we celebrate some of that work that brings a drop of equity towards a larger fight to bring back our neighborhoods and to build them to where they should be, so that our kids have the exact same thing that children in other neighborhoods have. So thank you, Mr. de León. Thank you for everybody who's up here, and for the city of Los Angeles and everybody else who's partnered up, because this is a larger fight, and the inequities that we have seen in our neighborhoods and across the state of California, where people of color have been left behind. And today we celebrate that we're picking back up. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Miguel, for a very powerful story about why this is so important for our communities. We have a handful of more individuals who are going to come up from both the city as well as our very own community here. But I think that our Assemblywoman, Wendy, wanted to share, or add, I should say, a couple more things.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. Just very quickly, I would be remiss to not say thank you to our California State Parks Director, Armando Quintero, who made this possible, who's native to East Los Angeles. He shared when we met with him, he's proud to be from this community, proud to be a Chicano, a Latino, in that position to ensure that our communities have access to green spaces and parks. So we were grateful to be able to work with him to secure those dollars to come here to our community. And as Sal Castro would say, today's a good day to be Chicano. Thank you.
Thank you, Rach. Armando. Let's next bring up our leader here at the city for many, many years, both when I was in the Assembly as well as Senator and your Senate leader. Mike Schull and I have worked very close together along with my staff here today, whether it be Adrian, whether it be Steve or others here at that time. I think I'm going to go out on a limb on this one right here, but I think that both Mike and I, with my staff, have probably produced more parks in the city of LA than anyone has ever produced in the history of the city of LA when you quantify all the numbers, not just from Prop 68 and the latest tranche, but actually from where it all comes from, which is AB 31. Let's bring up our general manager for Parks, Rec and Parks, I should say. Let's bring up Mike Schull. Mike Schull.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember, and I'm just very proud to stand here today with all of our elected leadership from the state to the federal government to our local leadership. It's a great day for Hazard Park, isn't it not? I mean, this is it's a great day for this community. It's all been said what's going to happen here, so I won't reiterate all that. I just for everyone to understand that this Parks Department, this Recreation and Parks Department stands with you on all equity issues. It is the foundation for which we move forward on all of our capital investment. But it's not just all about capital investment. It's about the human capital that we put in our parks as well. It's about staffing our parks appropriately to make sure our rec staff are here, and to be able to provide and honor and remember some of the leaders of the past that we're doing as part of this project. But that's because they were here in these parks and they were able to mentor many of the people here today. Without that, it's not just the open space and the green space. We need to have the human capital in there as well for our children and our youth. So please support the local rec staff as well as we talk about these projects. These projects bring the infrastructure and the need, but it provides the programming piece of that is so vitally important as well. As the council member stated, many people don't know about how many parks that we've built. I mean, there's been 37 new parks built in the city of Los Angeles over the last 8 years. As a result of the leadership that you see here today, as a result of the leadership of our mayor, there's been so much invested in our parks. I would say that this is probably one of the best times that I've seen. I'm 3 decades now in the city of Los Angeles. It is, to me, this is the best time that we've seen the most support coming for our local parks and the foundation of equity, and being able to voice that and say it loud and clear. That no longer, as everyone has stated, that the ones without won't continue to go without. We now track our investments where we put our money across the city of LA. This project is part of nearly $30 million grants that we got through Prop 68. There's also, all the parks, and we won't get into all the other parks that are receiving funding, but there's nearly, an equal amount of money going into South LA into parks down there, because we do lack park access here in Los Angeles. We have to make the most of our existing parks. We need to keep our foot on the pedal for expanding our parks, but we also need to improve our existing parks. Things like today, like we're talking about, you've heard about the soccer field, the synthetic soccer field. That's going to be lit. That should be not understated how important projects like that are. This time of year, kids can't come out and practice. They can't participate in sports because it's dark at 5 o'clock. We need more lights on our fields to give more access. It's not, it's about building new parks, but our existing parks play a vital role in expanding the availability to our youth. And it's so vitally important. So just blessed to be here. I'm so glad to see some of the sustainability items that we're doing as far as stormwater capture and all the things around green infrastructure that we also need to invest in. Really nice to see the people being honored and remembered here. That's so vitally important to communities like yours. And I'm just honored to serve as the general manager here in the city of Los Angeles, and honored to serve with all of the elected leadership here. And I thank you all for the support that you continue to give us here in Los Angeles. Let's be happy and have a lot of gratitude today, but let's not be satisfied. There's so much more work to do in Los Angeles. So let's just continue to press all of us to do better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mike. Very well spoken. Thank you. I think our goals now, because our freeways have really torn our neighborhoods, let's go get some money and put some cat parks over those freeways right now, so we can utilize space that exists vertically, but we can create those parks so we can be much more creative and innovative. Let's bring up from our Bureau of Engineering no other than Mary Nemec, and Mary is going to speak about the 6th Street Bridge Park. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here to help celebrate the new funding that's not only going to be renovating a very important park, a number of parks, but also building a new park, because we love helping to renovate and expand existing parks, but we also love to build new parks. The 6th Street Park is going to be 12 acres underneath the new 6th Street Viaduct. The timing of this is going to be that when we finish the viaduct, which is happening very soon, this summer, that iconic structure will be completed. So thank you all for your patience. It's going to be an amazing community celebration. We hope you all join us. We will immediately start working on the 12-acre park underneath the viaduct. That will take a couple years, so we'll come together again in 2024 to celebrate that beautiful 12-acre park, which is going to be amazing. 2 things I just want to add. One is we did not have all the funding we needed to complete that park, but now we do. This was the funding gap we were looking for. So thank you, Councilmember de León. Thank you, everyone who worked on that, everyone who's up here with me. The other thing is, it wasn't designed by city employees sitting in an office. It was designed by the community, and Council District 14 knows that. We spent almost 3 years working directly with the community, having meetings, design workshops, tours, asking people over and over again, this is your park, what would you like to see in it? And this is the design that the community, the local neighborhoods came up with. Playing fields, landscaping, urban forests, skate park, dog park, security lighting, all those things that is going to make it one of the most beautiful places to be in our city. So thank you so much, and thanks for giving us an opportunity to be here and to say thank you for the Bureau of Engineering.
Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you so very much. And thank you for all your expertise that you bring and your great leadership at the Bureau of Engineering. Two more speakers and two wonderful individuals. And let me bring up our very own Hillside Village resident, because he just lives right down the street over there across the train tracks. He's an amazing community leader, always out there doing what he needs to do to uplift our communities. Let's bring up here one of our Hazard Park community leaders, our very own Ray Rios. Ray Rios in the house.
I'm probably the community piece in everything, and so I'm thanking all our elected officials. I'm not as eloquent as everyone here, but I did write down a speech from a community, more personal level in relationship to Hazard Park. So I just want to thank you all for allowing me this opportunity to share these feelings. I think it's important also that you understand that there's many people that still continue to care for Hazard Park, and both current residents and former residents. So with that said, I'm a 62-year-old resident. I grew up right across the street from Soto, Ricardo Street. Hazard Park was our childhood and adult park. And our generation, to a large degree, was raised by parks. We were raised with the staff at the parks, and as we grew older, we became community leaders and park advocates, to the point where we continue to work with not only Hazard Park, but we work with Lincoln Park and Ascot Park. And I definitely can say to the point, including those today. Our rewards are days like this, where we know for a fact that we have funding to make improvements for our parks. It's a beautiful thing to our heart to be able to point to improvements and say, this is nice, this is a good thing for our community, and this is a good thing for our parks. This $8.2 million Proposition 68 grant is such great news for our community and everyone who uses this park on a daily basis. There are so many significant aspects to it, beginning with the desperately needed and long overdue exterior restroom. It also includes landscapes, amphitheaters, irrigation, dog park, and memorials to honor those who have championed this park in the past. This funding will not only beautify and bring greenness to the east side of our park, but will also recognize and preserve the history of those great community leaders who fought long and hard for this preservation and historical significance. They include the late environmentalist and park advocate Mr. Alex Mann, who not only fought to retain this park during the 1960s when it was almost traded for a veterans hospital, but also fought for preserving the natural wetlands which run right down to our left. And even that's a different chapter that we have to work on still. It also included park director and father figure to many generations, not only for Hazard Park or the Boyle Heights area, but also Lincoln Heights area, Mr. Way Wante. And just a little footnote on Mr. Wante, his grandson, Bryce Young, just won the Collegiate Heisman Trophy this past Saturday. So we have good roots here. And lastly, I think it was already mentioned, Mr. Sal Castro, the social studies teacher at Lincoln, who was a catalyst for the East Los Angeles walkouts. And right on these very grounds is where all the students from the East and Northeast gathered to fight for equity in our educational system. And the reason they gathered here was because right on that corner in a further west, they used to have the LAUSD Board of Education. So just to tie that significance and why they gathered here. As longtime residents, we understand firsthand how challenging it is to bring funding to and improvements to our community and parks. We know that when they do come, it is through much effort and hard work from our elected officials and community working together. So from our community, we offer a sincere and heartfelt thank you to our Councilman Kevin de León, Special Projects Director Nate Hayward, all those members and employees from Recreation and Parks, Mr. Mike Scholl, and also our state elected officials, legislators, Ms. Wendy Carrillo, Assembly Member Wendy Carrillo, and State Senator Maria Elena Durazo, and Miguel Santiago. I didn't know you were going to be here, but you're there. Thank you. We thank you all. Okay. The director from Hazard Park, I don't see her here, Annette Dibbs. Just wanted to give thanks to them for holding up the fort here, especially during this time of COVID. Her and Philip are doing wonderful work here. Their sensitivity is just what this community needed, so we thank them. And in closing, I thank you again for hearing my thoughts in a brief history lesson. And I look forward to the day when myself and those future generations of kids from this community can look to the coming improvements and say with pride, our park looks very nice today. Yep. And one last thing, just from a personal level, in 1965, this park was almost traded away for a Veterans Hospital. I grew up on Ricardo Street, and there were many civically minded residents there at the time, and there was one resident who had a big wooden sign that was there for years. It said "Save Hazard Park," and they were residents who fought for this park and fought for our green space. And there was a little boy that used to pass that about 1,000 times, and he knew that sign very well. Well, 50 years later, I'm that little boy, and we're still fighting to save Hazard Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray, and thank you very much for the really deeply personal history that is so powerful and means so much to you, growing up just down the street and now just a little less than half a mile over in Hillside. Last but not least, we have our very own Raquel Roman, who was a very strong advocate for our Pico Gardens community, for our park, as well as 6th Street Park. Let's bring it up, Raquel Roman. Raquel Roman.
Buenos dias. I don't know if I'm nervous or it's just the cold. Yeah, it's the cold. Or los dos. Before I share a few words, we're all looking at the sky and the beautiful trees, but I want to invite you to take a moment to look at our Madre Tierra and say thank you for all the frutos, for all the fruits that this land has given us. It's a beautiful land, and I know that it'll give us more fruits, más frutos. And my phone went off. 1 second. My name is Raquel Roman, and I'm the Executive Director of Proyecto Pastoral. I'm a proud hija de esta tierra de Los Angeles and a proud community resident of the East Side. For over 30 years, we have served and organized with our community, which accesses parks in our area, such as our largest Hollenbeck Park, and smaller ones, such as our Pecan and Prospect and Evergreen parks. We're also relegated to creatively use the perimeter of Evergreen Cemetery for walking, jogging, and the new exercise equipment around First Street. I'm also co-founder of Running Mommies, and I want to say today, thank you, Councilmember de León, and everybody here for being champions of green spaces. Your work has literally saved lives, for creating, for allowing and for having these spaces, for championing the work to have these spaces for mothers, for our children, and for families. Soon we will have another small park off Matthews and Chavez to provide a little bit more green space and shade and a place for rest. However, we still do not have access to enough park acreage, and in fact, for Boyle Heights, we only have an average just over half an acre per every 1,000 residents, which is 6 times lower than the county average of 3.3 acres per every 1,000. So there's lots of work to be done, as it's been said here several times. This is why funding locally, such as Measure A and Measure W, are so critical, but also, in this case, the reason we are here to celebrate today. Our state funds approved by state legislature and also from Proposition 68. With funds granted by Prop 68, there will be an over $8 million investment, which has been said, to Hazard Park, but also an over $8 million to support the development of the 6th Street Viaduct Park projects on both sides of the LA River, which will be, it's going to be amazing for our community and life-changing for generations to come.
It will have an urban forest, a skate park, fitness equipment, playground, splash pad, 2 dog parks, walking and jogging pathways for the running mommies, public art lighting, and restroom facilities. The funding also awarded nearly $7 million to Salazar Park in an unincorporated area of East LA Park that so many of our Boyle Heights residents access since it's right at the city-county line. Truly, yes. Let's have a round of applause for all of the great work that has been done to get us to today. We are fighting to invest in historically disinvested communities through an equity framework. In the short term, it is important that we repurpose and revitalize and creatively use spaces with multi-benefit projects at current parks and park-poor communities, while simultaneously working to build new park spaces, which sometimes can take much longer to build out. This funding award was statewide and highly competitive grant process, which required and rewarded higher points in the scoring criteria that took into account authentic, meaningful community engagement, and we're so grateful for that, from local residents, and that were there. And there were many partnerships between the cities and the local CBOs. This must continue to be the path forward if we want a cleaner, greener, and healthier Los Angeles for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Raquel. So here we are, and please take your time to come up and look at the poster boards that we have here. I want to thank our very own Jimmy Gomez, Elena Durazo, Wendy Carrillo, Miguel Santiago, Mike Schull, Mary Nemec, Raquel Roman, who just spoke a few moments ago, just a second ago, as well as our very own Ray Rios. This is a beautiful, historic, celebratory day. I know that we have our own channel here, so we have our elected officials here who will come out here and do their individual interviews as well, too. Everyone have a wonderful, great day. Gracias a todos. Thank you.